So I think the best place to start telling my story is my freshman year of high school. I was just sitting in the auditorium at Trinity after a reconciliation service, and I was just thinking about the priesthood in seminary. And I'd never really thought about it before, and so when I kind of caught myself, I tried to reject it immediately because it was just this strange thought, like, where did this come from? Why would I be thinking about this? Because at the time I didn't really know what priests did. I would see a priest every Sunday or at weddings or at funerals, but beyond that I really didn't have a lot of interaction with priests. And I definitely didn't know what seminary was like, just knew the name essentially. And I remember when two men from Trinity entered seminary, Dominic Baukanas and Holgard, when each of those announcements were made that they had been accepted, it had a strong impact on me because I realized that other guys were thinking about this too, and that normal guys were entering seminary. And so it really kind of brought it all to the fore each time that happened. But again, I still was running. I had a lot of fear in that regard. And it wasn't until my senior year, when Father Josh Eli was the new chaplain at Trinity, that things really began to change. Because I guess on the one hand, I started thinking about college and what I was going to major in and what was going to happen after college. And I realized that nothing seemed quite right. And now I realize it's because I was making all these plans without any thought towards Catholicism or God's will in my life. And so everything just kind of seemed empty. So then it was at the beginning of my senior year when Father Eli came, and he started presenting the faith in a very systematic way. So that was the first time that I had seen things like proofs for God's existence. And I wasn't necessarily doubting God's existence, but I had just never really had the question answered, why believe in the first place? And that really opened the door to asking other questions like, okay, well, why Christianity? Why Catholicism? And on top of that, why do Catholics believe what we believe? And there was something about seeing that rational side of the faith and seeing how philosophy and logic and reason played into the faith and the kind of intertwining of faith and reason. It was when I saw that Catholicism became much more attractive because it became much more real. And with that comes the understanding that if all this is true and if I believe all this, then I have to change the way that I'm living my life. I can't believe all these things, and I can't believe that God became man and not respond to that in some way. And so that had a very strong impact on me. And I think Father Eli saw that was happening, so he would give me books to read, like C.S. Lewis's The Problem of Pain. We were already reading Mere Christianity, Peter Kreeft's Back to Virtue. So just books like that were introductory in a certain sense. And it really helped me to see what the faith was all about and have something a little more tangible. I started having the desire or at least the thoughts about entering seminary, they kept coming back to my mind. And again, I was still at a place where even though I was growing closer to God in one sense, there was still a lot of fear. And so I ended up going on a Vianney visit at St. John Vianney Seminary in St. Paul. And within minutes of going in, I felt this great peace. But then I had a second thought that said, well, I still want to do all these other things. So I just tried to reject it because there was still so much fear about my vocation at that point. And so I went on over that summer and I kept praying, and it kept coming back that I need to think about seminary. I need to consider applying, and I ended up going to the University of North Dakota for my first year of undergraduate. And I ended up meeting Father Jason Lefor right away, who's actually a distant cousin of mine, and he served as my spiritual director. And I just told him some of the thoughts that I was having about seminary. I started going to daily mass. I started going to confession more. I started hanging out with a good group of Catholic friends. And it just kept coming back more and more often. It would be on my mind. But I still would always have that second thought about there's all these other things that I want to do. And so I would talk to Father Lefor about this, and I met Monsignor Richter, and I talked to him about it. And I would talk to Father Eli whenever I came back, and they just kept counseling me to keep praying. And it wasn't until the last week of the fall semester that Father Lefor pulled me aside and said, Scott, this is just going to be on your mind. You're not going to have any peace until you just give this a shot. And just in case I had planned on running a little more, he called Monsignor Richter for me and said, Scott, he's expecting your call by the end of the week. And I'm really grateful that happened because it was kind of the kick out the door that I needed. And so I ended up meeting with Monsignor Richter, and after a few meetings it became apparent that I needed to give seminary a try. And so I applied and I was accepted that next semester. And so really it's the perfect environment for discovering your vocation further and seeing where that path leads.